My father came to the United Kingdom at the age of 17 from Barbados. And at the age of 12, because he was the oldest child, he was expected to be the breadwinner. And so he left formal education at the age of 12. But he always said if he had had the opportunity to continue in education, he would have been in the legal profession. So my family, my grandparents and parents from the Caribbean, and they came to Britain, they say, in search of faith, hope and opportunity. I went to a comprehensive school having failed the selective exam, and we immigrated to America in 1985. My secondary schooling was in America, and I graduated from high school, and I graduated on the Wednesday, and by the Thursday I was back in the United Kingdom because I wanted to study in this jurisdiction and the law of England and Wales. When I returned to the United Kingdom, I was 19 years of age. I'd been slightly held back in high school because they thought I had a speech impediment because of the way the twang was at that time in Buckinghamshire. So TH was pronounced as, I thought, as opposed to I thought. So I was held back, and hence, rather than graduating at 18, I didn't graduate until I was 19. So I had the graduate diploma for America, but when I came back to England, it wasn't recognised, and I had to do an access to education course, which I did part-time for 2 years in my local college, and then subsequently that enabled me to go on to university, but not before I took a pause and worked. So I found myself I worked briefly as a postwoman. I then went on to work for British Rail, as they were then, and at that time I took myself and signed up for a part-time law degree starting in 1996. I wanted to qualify as a litigator, but at that time there were no positions within that firm for me to qualify into as a litigator. I was offered conveyancing, but that's not what I wanted to do. So having finished law school, having finished qualifying with my training contract, I found myself without work, and in fact I was doing people's gardens. And then subsequently I applied for my first post-qualification job with a firm in Huntingdon. I didn't enjoy private practice, but for me that was at a time of stark change, number of cuts going on to public funding, and so I was made redundant twice in as many years. I remember calling up an agent and saying, I want to go into the city, this is what I want to do, and this is how much I would like to earn. And the recruitment agent telling me, you're never going to get into the city because you didn't train, you didn't qualify, you've never worked in the city, it's not going to happen, and your salary expectation is unrealistic. Well, I didn't listen to that agent. I found myself a different agent, and I was subsequently offered a job as solicitor with the General Counsel of the Bar and advisor to the then Complaints Commissioner. I did face obstacles as a woman, but I think for me it's difficult to talk about obstacles as a woman without talking about obstacles as a black woman. And looking back now, I think that's what absolutely drove me, because the more the doors shut, the more people told me, because of my socio-economical background, and because I hadn't gone to the right university the first time around, I didn't come from a privileged background, hadn't qualified in a magic circle firm. I even had people tell me that I didn't look like a solicitor, didn't sound like a solicitor. And the more, as I say, people told me I couldn't, was the more I was determined that I could. So having done my first in-house with the General Counsel of the Bar, I continued on the in-house route, moving into the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, ACCA. And I stayed with them for 5 years. I was promoted very quickly within 6 months and stayed with them until 2012. And then I left and I took on a number of projects with Ofsted, the pensions regulator. And then I took some time out to do some unpaid work. I was mindful that I was doing lots in London, but not so much in my local community. And I became chair of the Education Appeals Panel and Exclusion. Education is absolutely something that is key to my heart. And having failed the selective exam, I felt that I could make a contribution back in terms of seeing how the processes and procedures were currently being operated. And part of me sometimes still feels to say to parents that when they say, my child's life is over because they didn't pass or they haven't got into this school, to say, look at me, I didn't pass, but it hasn't stopped me achieving my dreams. I immersed myself in the workings of council, joining various committees and boards. I then realised that the profession was changing, the dynamics on council was changing. And I also realised that in-house community was one of the fastest growing areas, but much wasn't being said or done about that particular area at the time. And so I put myself forward for the first time in 2015 as Deputy Vice President presidential candidate. And 4 times later, I have been successfully elected as Deputy Vice President. I am the first black person to be elected as Deputy Vice President and will become the first ethnic minority president in 21-22. A remarkable achievement, and so much so what it meant to me was that when I received the call to tell me that I had been elected, I was walking up Chancery Lane away from the Law Society, and when I got the call, I burst into tears in Chancery Lane. What I would like to see a change at the end of my presidency is to leave the solicitor profession more diverse and inclusive than the one I entered. As I travel around and hearing stories and people approach and saying, I thought I couldn't, but you absolutely give me hope and inspiration to know that actually I can become a solicitor and I can reach the top of my profession regardless of my colour, my background, my gender, or any of those issues. And it's my hope that we continue to attract the brightest and the best of this profession, and that is how I hope to leave office when I leave.